Now, this case is not very complicated. Yes, it does look like there's a lot to read, but fundamentally, the first paragraph can be ignored because it just gives us background information on the company. The company is Humane Dynamix. It's a leadership training organization and it is headed by the CEO. Then it says that there is a training assignment officer, the TAO, who reports to the CEO. So this person seems to be pretty important, the next in command. Now, what is the TAO supposed to do? The TAO assigns a trainer to the client. So the client shares certain training needs with the company, and based on assessment of the client's training needs, the TAO decides which particular trainer should be assigned to that client. A lot of times, if a client has done business with Humane Dynamix in the past and they have been satisfied with that trainer, then they might ask for the same trainer again. So that is what paragraph 2 is telling us. But the TAO takes the final call. So for example, let's say that I am the client. I go to Humane Dynamix. I tell them, look, we want to conduct this training program and trainer A from your company last year had done a very good job. So please give us trainer A again. So of course, if I want to maintain a relationship with that client, I might say, yes, of course, you can have the same trainer. But the training assignment officer takes the final call. They can also refuse the same trainer or assign a different trainer. After that, it says that the senior trainers conduct most training programs while the newly recruited trainers apprentice with them, which makes sense. If I am a new trainer, then I will need some time to get used to the training programs, understand how they are conducted, and then I can do them on my own. The senior trainers have the autonomy to decide on who they want to accept as an apprentice. So as a senior trainer, I can say, okay, this is the new trainer that can come along with me and I will train them. The third paragraph says, during a training program, the senior trainer takes most of the sessions, if not all, but the apprentice helps the senior trainers organize the sessions and occasionally takes a few sessions. So for example, if the training program has 10 sessions, then the senior trainer might take 8 of them and the apprentice might take 1 or 2 or none at all. After that, it says that once the apprentice gains experience, then they can also get independent projects, but this takes a little bit of time. So if I join Humane Dynamix as a newly recruited trainer, it will be a while before I get an independent project. And this is where the problem arises. Now let's look at the last paragraph. Dheeraj, a senior trainer, takes over as the TAO. Now, as soon as he assumes office, the CEO shares a concern with him. The CEO says that, look, we have just recruited a lot of new trainers and they are impatient to prove their mettle, because they feel that they're pretty good and they want to get independent projects or they want more time training. But unless they are assigned more programs, we risk losing them rapidly. So if I join the organization and I'm not really allowed to do much, then I might feel a little frustrated or a little unhappy working for that organization, and I may say, oh, you know what, there isn't actually much to do or learn here, and I might quit. And that's what the CEO is concerned about, that these newly recruited trainers, if they are not given an opportunity to take on more training programs, they might leave the organization. So Dheeraj's task, therefore, is to solve this problem. How to ensure that these newly recruited trainers get more opportunities to do their own training programs or participate in training. Now, let's take a look at our first question. A lot of times the question adds additional detail to the case, which this does. Dheeraj knows that his senior colleagues are very good at training and hence they conduct most of the training programs. So the system that is there, it works fundamentally. They keep the client satisfied and consequently bring repeat business. But the CEO obviously has a different directive. Because the CEO has said that we need to get more training time for these new recruits, Dheeraj has to do something about it. So look at the question. Which of the following options should Dheeraj execute to best enable the young trainers to get more training opportunities without affecting their relationships with the client companies? Now, you have to understand why it might affect the relationship with the client companies. The client may be a repeat client. They have already had a good experience with a particular trainer. So they might want that trainer back. So if I do not give them the same trainer, if I assign a new one to them, it is possible that the new recruit may not do as good of a job, or the client may not want a new trainer. So I have to find a balance between these two things. So the criteria for assessment of our actions here is something like this. The young trainers should get more training opportunities without adversely affecting the relationships with client companies. So I have to ensure that clients are happy, but I'm also giving opportunities to the new trainers. Now let's keep this in mind. Our first option says Dheeraj should assign some of the repeat projects from the satisfied clients with particular senior mentors to the young trainers. Now, this might affect my relationship with the client because I don't know how good the new trainer is going to be. So, if it is a repeat client, they were very happy with a trainer whom we had sent in the past. But now we say, you know what, let me send you a new trainer. And the new trainer does not do as good of a job, then that client might be offended. So option 1 is going to probably affect the relationship with the client, even though it serves one purpose. It will give more training opportunities for the new recruits. So let's eliminate one because we can't afford to offend the clients. The second one says, Dheeraj should mandate that the senior trainers must allow the young trainers to take at least 30% of their training sessions. Now you might wonder, is Dheeraj allowed to mandate that? Is he allowed to direct the senior trainers? Yes, of course. He is also a senior trainer, but in his current capacity, he is allowed to decide how much of the training is assigned to which trainer. So in this case, what is happening is that the training is still being conducted by the senior trainer and is supervised by a senior trainer. But the young recruits are also getting an opportunity to conduct some training programs. So the young recruits get trained and the client also is not likely to be unhappy because in case the young trainer is not doing something too well, then the senior trainer can take over. So this is a good balance between the two directives that Dheeraj has. Let's keep two. The third one says Dheeraj should explore for those clients who would be comfortable working with the young trainers. I thought this also could work, So I can ask the clients if they're okay with another trainer. And perhaps some clients will say, yes, I'm absolutely fine. You can send me a new trainer. But the problem is, what if they're not? What if I don't find too many clients who want new trainers? And so in that case, I will not be able to meet one of my requirements. I will not be able to find opportunities for young trainers. So option 3, therefore, is out. The fourth one, Dheeraj should request the repeat clients to switch to the services of young trainers who bring a lot of energy to their sessions. Now, imagine that I have a long-standing client and I tell them, you know what, we have senior trainers, but let me give you a new one. Can you please switch? Slightly unprofessional, and the client also may not be very happy with doing this and they would wonder why we are not assigning senior trainers to them. So option 4 is likely to damage our relationship with the client. That is why it is not a viable option. The fifth one says Dheeraj should request the CEO to urge the senior colleagues in giving up some of their existing clients in the interests of others' careers. Now, this is something you are not allowed to do. What is it that you're not allowed to do? Shirk responsibility. Dheeraj is the one who has been given the mandate for solving the issue. Dheeraj can now say, look, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. Look, CEO, why don't you tell the senior trainers that they need to do something? So this is kind of shirking responsibility. It might also offend the clients because the clients may not really want the new trainers in the first place. So option 5 is a pretty bad thing to do. That cannot be our answer, which means we go back to option 2. The reason it's a great option is that this is the only one where we are trying to do both things. We are managing our relationship with the client because we are assigning the senior trainers to them, but we are also giving opportunities to the young recruits. So our answer should be the second option. Now let's take a look at this additional information that we need to consider. When you read this additional information, you should not forget everything else that you had read in the case. This is in addition to that. So Dheeraj has decided to assign some of the repeat clients at random to young trainers. So when I read this line, I thought, okay, this may not be such a good idea after all, because the clients might not find the young trainers all that good. At the same time, this does give opportunities to the young trainers, so at least it serves someone's purpose. But on the whole, not a great thing to do. The second paragraph here says, Sudha Iyer, a senior trainer who's popular for her training programs, was surprised that some of her clients were assigned to a young person. Obviously, if I've been conducting a training program for some time and all of a sudden I see that my training program has been assigned to a younger person, I might feel a little miffed and I might say, okay, why did that happen? She was concerned that the clients would feel shortchanged and she was chagrined that she was not even consulted. This led to reduction in a number of training hours. Now, this is another concern that Sudha has. If they cross a certain number of work hours, then there is an incentive that they will get. But because her training hours will reduce, she may not get that incentive. So even financially, Sudha might suffer. Now, the question is, which of the following actions would best help Sudha to stop Dheeraj from assigning her programs to the young trainers? So now I am Sudha. I obviously don't want my clients to be assigned to someone else or a new trainer to be assigned to my clients. But even so, since I am still a part of Humane Dynamix, I cannot work at counter purposes to the organizational goals. So always keep that in mind, that you cannot go against what the organization wants. But yes, you are allowed to generally nudge for your own agenda because you think it's the right thing to do. So here, the criteria that we're going to use is that Dheeraj needs to stop assigning Sudha's training programs to young trainers without going against the organizational goals. Our first option says she should confront the CEO and share that his concerns should not be addressed at the cost of her revenues. This is personalizing the issue. This is saying, oh, but why should I be made to suffer? Which seems like you're kind of whining and complaining. That's one problem. The second is that she has bypassed the TAO's authority and she has gone straight to the CEO. She should have gone to the training assignment officer first. So, option 1 definitely is not going to help her cause. Option 2 says she should approach the CEO and request that Dheeraj be removed from his role as the TAO. This is pretty extreme. I think all of us would agree. Dheeraj may not be bad at his job. Plus, it is the CEO who has directed him to give more opportunities to the young trainers and he's just following up on that directive. So, option 2 is pretty extreme. Let's get rid of that. She should contact the client companies and ask them to reject Dheeraj's assigned trainers. This would obviously work against the organizational goals. This is also pretty unprofessional when you reach out to clients and say, you know what, why don't you refuse whatever trainers the organization is assigning you? So, this will not only damage Sudha's reputation, it might also offend the clients. So, this will not help. Let's eliminate 3. The fourth one says she should propose training the young trainers in her innovative methods so that they become independent in the future. Now, when I read this option, I thought, okay, this seems like it could work because here Sudha is still helping the organization, but she's also getting in more training hours because now she is training the young trainers. So, to some extent, it solves her problem. But again, going back to our criteria, Sudha wants Dheeraj to stop assigning her training programs to the young trainers. If Sudha does whatever option 4 is saying, then it is possible that a lot of her clients may get the young trainers because the young trainers now will be good enough to conduct those training programs. So this might not be very helpful for Sudha herself. So let's eliminate 4. The fifth option says she should share with Dheeraj that assigning her client companies to novice trainers will lead to loss of those clients. Is this possible? Yes, it is possible. Because Sudha has a good reputation and her training programs are popular, all of a sudden, if I send in a new person to conduct that training, it is possible that the new person may not do such a great job and my old clients may not be very happy with the company. So option 5 is definitely a possibility. All that Sudha needs to do is point out that this may happen to Dheeraj. And then Dheeraj might say, yes, you're right. I'm not going to assign your clients to a new trainer. So option 5 is going to be our correct choice. In this case, Dheeraj has assigned a repeat client of Nandini Hegde, who is a very senior trainer, to a younger trainer, Kirti Gowda. Now, this might have worked out well, except that it hasn't. The client company reached out to Nandini, the senior trainer, and told her that we're not very happy with the work that Kirti is doing. So, they're not happy with the young trainer. Now, the client also tells her that we have communicated this to Dheeraj. Dheeraj is the TAO. And Dheeraj said, don't worry, it will get better, which obviously is not the right thing to say on Dheeraj's part, but that is what he has said. It says, what best can Nandini do to regain the client for herself without appearing to be against the organization's focus on providing the young trainers more opportunities? So obviously, she wants to get her client back, but she also cannot work against the organization. What is the organization saying? The organization is saying, we want to give more opportunities to young trainers. So, we have a dual focus here. We have to get Nandini what she wants without going against the organizational goals. Now, option 1 says, arrange a meeting with Dheeraj informing him that she is aware of the situation and Dheeraj's actions may lose the client for Humane Dynamix. As far as I can see, this does look like a pretty good thing to do because she is aware of the situation, so she's not lying, and the client is unhappy, so they may lose the client. The only problem that I can see with one is that it doesn't really do anything to encourage young trainers. But since this is the first option and it looks like a logical course of action, let's keep it. The second option says, engage in a follow-up conversation with the client, requesting that they communicate their concerns to the CEO of Humane Dynamix directly. Now, this is going over the authority of the TAO, which is never a professional thing to do. So, if she has any concerns about assignment of trainers, then she should look to the person whose responsibility it is to assign trainers, which is Dheeraj. She cannot reach out to the client outside the organization and say, you know what, why don't you speak to the CEO directly? This is probably going to strain her relationship with Dheeraj, and it's also an unprofessional thing to do. So, cannot be the second option. The third one says, share the client's feedback with Kirti and ask her to opt out of future training assignments with that client. This also is not really her jurisdiction. Who is the training assignment officer? It is not Nandini, it is Dheeraj. So, if any feedback has come about any of the subordinates, this feedback should be shared with the training assignment officer, who is Dheeraj. Option 3, therefore, is not the right one. The fourth option says, tell the clients that to ensure quality, they must demand her exclusively as a trainer for their upcoming training programs. This is putting too much on the side of the client. You cannot reach out to the client outside your organization and say, why don't you ensure that you remain my client? This is an unprofessional thing to do, slightly unethical also really if you think about it. And this also goes against the organization's goal of promoting young trainers. So let's get rid of 4. The fifth option says, propose to Dheeraj that in future assignments with the client, Kirti be a co-trainer with Nandini to help improve her performance. Now what happens? Nandini gets the client back, so she's the senior trainer, she will conduct most of the training programs. But Kirti also gets a chance to be trained and improve. So this will help the organization provide Kirti with more training opportunities. Only option 5 seems to meet both the purposes. Option 1 does not do much to encourage the younger trainers. So at this juncture, we can eliminate 1 and say 5 is the best course of action. This case study does have a few ethical dilemmas involved. So we have to keep in mind that we remember that we have to uphold ethics. In the first paragraph, we are introducing a newspaper called the Pluralist. Mr. Zubin Mistry is the owner and the chief editor of the newspaper. Now, this is a very renowned newspaper. It's known for its high reporting standards. And it says that the news editing team is led by Ms. Ramya Katabomman, a respected veteran in the newspaper reporting industry. So, on the whole, the newspaper and its staff are pretty solid, honest. They show integrity, they uphold journalistic standards. It's a good place to work as far as I can see. In the second paragraph, we introduce a new character, Mr. Aditya Swarup Verma. Now, he is a good journalist. He's award-winning. He has brought in an expose into the activities of a mining company that is operating in an ecologically vulnerable area. So, obviously, we don't like mining companies. They must be doing something wrong. But in this case, Mr. Aditya Swarup Verma has come up with a report in which he has produced interviews with tens of people showing how the mining company has used illegal means to start mining in the area. These mining activities can lead to destruction of the local ecology. Now, Aditya Swarup has been unable to obtain an interview with the management of the company. So, whenever you write an article against someone, you're supposed to always give them a chance to respond to it. In this case, he has not been able to give the company a chance to comment on it, probably because they didn't want to. The third option or the third paragraph says that Aditya Swarup's investigative report offers significant revelations about the alleged illegal activities of the mining company. The only problem is that the sources that he has used have requested complete anonymity. He cannot quote his sources in the article. So what has happened here is, this person, who is a well-known journalist, has come up with an article about the illegal activities of a mining company. He has interviewed people who have spoken out against the company, but these sources have requested anonymity. That is the story so far. fundamentally, there is no problem that is presented here. Let's take a look at our first question. Ramya is trying to decide whether to publish the article. So now is the problem. Should we publish or should we not publish? Publishing the article may enhance the reputation of the newspaper, but of course there could be backlash because the mining company would probably want to fight back against the article. She has consulted the legal team of the newspaper, who have warned that the report, because it relies on anonymous sources, may be legally vulnerable. It may be questioned and may not stand in the court of law, in which case the newspaper would probably have to retract the article and may also have to pay damages. So they're not very sure about whether they should publish it or not. On the other hand, Aditya Swarup is a senior journalist, well known, well respected for the quality of his investigative reporting. So on the one hand, the sources are a bit of an issue, but the journalist has a lot of credibility. The topic of the report is time sensitive. If the report is not published in the next 2-3 days, the mining company will get an important government project in the area. So what is the problem? The problem is Ramya has to decide whether or not to publish the article. Now look at the question. Which of the following reasons will best enable Ramya to publish the article? Now, if I had to make any decision, I would evaluate the pros and cons and ensure that the pros outweigh the cons. And that's basically going to be the criteria by which we will assess each option. Publishing the article should carry more benefits than risks, but because it is a very ethical newspaper, it should also maintain ethical standards. That is something we will always keep in mind. Let's look at our options. The first option says Ramya should publish the article because the same news can get published by a competitor known for breaking such news. So the reason for publishing the article right here would not be to uphold journalistic integrity, but to beat the competition. Again, since this is a bit of an ethical dilemma, you have to keep the ethical standards in mind and you have to uphold the highest possible standards. I should not publish the article if it can damage my company's reputation, simply because I want to beat the competition. So option 1 is not a good reason to publish. The second option says Ramya should publish the article because any investigation by Aditya Swarup has enhanced the reputation of the Pluralist till date. Now, here we are saying that this journalist has always done good work in the past and whatever work he has done has always benefited the newspaper. So it is likely that this article will also benefit the newspaper. So this is a plus in favor of publishing the article. Let's look at 3. Ramya should publish the article because her legal team is mostly overcautious about any possibility of backlashes. This is undermining the authority of the legal team. Your legal team is telling you, look, you might get into trouble if you publish the article, and you're basically dismissing their concerns, saying, oh, what do you know? This is not the right thing to do because then Ramya might get in trouble. So let's get rid of option 3. The fourth one says Ramya should publish the article because a similar article was published on another mining company last week in another news daily. This tells me that because other people are doing it, therefore it is okay, which is really not a very ethical way to decide things. Just because someone else has done it is not a good enough reason for me to do it. I will have to assess whether publishing this article will be good for my newspaper or whether it will not be good for my newspaper. So option 4 does not deal with that pros and cons analysis at all. It just says, oh, someone else did it, so you should also do it. So this cannot be the right reason. The fifth one says Ramya should publish the article given the time-sensitive nature of the report. So why is she going to publish now? Because later on it may not have an impact. But again, remember that the article is subject to certain problems. That is why she's thinking about whether it should be published or not. Option 5 would mean that she is making a hasty decision. It does not go into the reasons for publishing the article necessarily. Just because something is time sensitive does not mean that you do it, because it could be the wrong decision. So option 5 is not our answer. Only one of these gives us a somewhat positive feeling about the article, which is the credibility that Aditya Swarup has. And that is why the best reason to publish the article is the journalist who has written it. And therefore, the answer is option 2. Now, here we have further developments in the story. The article is published and it goes viral. So, great for the company. But then the mining company pushes back, obviously, because the article does not show them in a very good light. It contests some findings of the article. Now, you would say, okay, but the mining company might anyway just be unhappy. However, in this case, their argument holds some water. While the potential inaccuracies do not entirely invalidate the article, they substantially undermine its message if proven true. So, what the mining company is saying might actually be right. So, obviously, Ramya goes back to Aditya Swaroop and says, you'll have to bring more proof so that our article can stand. But then Aditya Swaroop says that, you know what, my sources are not all that reliable. There were 2 employees who were recently fired by the mining company. So, it's always a bad idea to seek an opinion from employees who are disgruntled, because they are never going to say anything good about the company, and whatever they have said might be biased. So, please remember that if the article is based on the opinions put forth by disgruntled employees, then we can't really trust those opinions at all. They now admit that they were not completely honest in their initial interaction with them. Even the sources are now saying, oh, we could have lied, or that we were not completely transparent. So, some points raised in the article might still be valid, but on the whole, it is difficult to separate the inaccuracies given the unreliability of the sources. So, it's very difficult to say how much of the article is right and how much of it is inaccurate, because my sources are unreliable. Ramya immediately brings it to the attention of Zubin while admitting that she hastily permitted the publication of the article. So now Ramya is also partly at fault, because they said, yes, let's publish, even though her legal team had advised her that this article may not stand in a court of law. What is the most responsible action that Zubin should take, keeping in view the recent developments due to the inaccuracies of the article? So now you are the owner of the newspaper. You have to decide what to do, because the article that was published is clearly inaccurate. There is no way that we can go back on that. Let's keep in mind that we want to basically ensure journalistic integrity. We want to uphold the high standards of the newspaper, but we also want to control the damage to the reputation of the newspaper. So, both these purposes are what we are going to drive. Now, our first option says, publish an article accusing the mining company of bullying witnesses to change their versions. Is this an ethical thing to do? Not really. We don't know if the mining company has actually bullied witnesses. There is no evidence that supports this view. This is going to lead to further problems, because this itself may not be accurate. We have already published an inaccurate article. We don't want to publish more inaccuracies. So, option 1 is not going to be our answer. Option 2 says, publish a modified version of the article the next day, defending the investigative journalism of Aditya Swaroop. Now, there are 2 problems with this. First of all, if you look at the data, it clearly says that it's very difficult to separate the inaccuracies from the correct version. We don't know how much of the information is correct and which of it is false. So then how will we publish a modified version? That is one problem. Secondly, our goal is not to defend the investigative journalism of Aditya Swaroop. Yes, we might want to do that, but the fundamental goal that we are trying to accomplish is ensure good journalism and protecting the newspaper as a whole. So, option 2 does not really do either of these things. That is why it cannot be your answer. The third option says, retract the entire article and publish Ramya's apology in the newspaper. Here, we are definitely trying to take the highest moral standard. We are saying we are wrong. So, since we are wrong, we are going to take back the entire article. Why are we doing that? Remember, because we don't know how much of it is right and how much of it is wrong. So, we just take back the entire thing. Publish Ramya's apology in the newspaper because this is contrary to what the newspaper is generally known for. The newspaper does not print wrong stuff. So, since it has made a mistake, it is acknowledging that mistake and being transparent with its readers, which might actually repair its reputation to some extent. So, let's keep 3. The fourth one says, publish a follow-up article disclosing the identity of the sources used for the article. Well, first of all, as soon as I read this, you should remember that the sources have asked for anonymity. So, you are not allowed to disclose the identity of the sources. So, option 4 anyway cannot be your answer. Plus, this is also shirking responsibility or putting the blame on someone else, whereas the newspaper and all the people involved in publishing the article are definitely at fault. So, option 4 is unethical on multiple fronts. Option 5 says retract the entire article and publish that Aditya Swarup will no longer be with the newspaper. Now, this is a pretty extreme thing to do. Aditya Swarup has made a mistake, but at the same time, he has a very long career before that in which he has proven his mettle. So, because he has made this one mistake, it is a little unethical and extreme to fire him from the job. We do not take extreme actions unless it is absolutely necessary. That is why option 5 is not going to be our answer. The answer is going to be the third one. We have to retract the article because it is wrong. We will publish an apology because we want to be transparent with the readers. And that is why option 3. Now here, part of this text we must already be familiar with. It says that the article has been published. The mining company is contesting some of the findings in the article. After that, we found out that the journalist, Aditya Swarup, has admitted to the fact that his sources were unreliable, right? So, he is definitely at fault and there are inaccuracies in the article. So, those are established facts. This has hit Aditya Swarup's reputation because he trusted unreliable sources. But he is absolutely confident about the subject matter itself. He is confident that the mining is illegal. So yes, there might be inaccuracies, but the fundamental thesis is not completely down and out. He wants to redeem himself. So he goes to the owner of the newspaper and says, please let me find new sources and rewrite the article. His fresh investigation will require time and money, but it might also enhance the reputation of the newspaper. Now, the owner has to take a call on whether he will allow Aditya Swarup to rewrite the article. Zubin respects Aditya Swarup and wants his reputation to be restored. So he definitely wants to help the guy. But he is also confident that continuing work on the mining company project will not yield any results, which means that Zubin probably is not going to allow Aditya Swarup to rewrite the article. The question is, which of the following actions by Zubin will best enable Aditya Swarup to enhance his diminishing reputation? So we do want to help the journalist recover his reputation as an investigative journalist. But we also don't really want him to rewrite the article. So the criteria here are that we need to take actions that will enable Aditya Swarup to get back his reputation or enhance his reputation. Now, let's take a look at the options. The first option says, assign Aditya Swarup to work as an anonymous journalist for the next few months until he feels confident of himself. Now, Aditya Swarup is pretty well known. He's an award-winning journalist. So, if we ask him to work anonymously, how is it going to help restore his reputation? In order to restore his name, he needs to keep working in his own name. So, option 1 is not very helpful to Aditya Swarup. Another thing is that option 1 does not tell us whether he will be working on the mining article or whether he'll be working on something else. As Zubin, I don't want him to work on the mining article. So, option 1 is not going to be our answer. This will not help Aditya Swarup. The second one says, tell Aditya Swarup that he plans to delegate the mining company project to a fresh team. Now, the moment you read this, you would realize, and so would Aditya Swarup, that the owner has lost faith in him. Because the moment you say, I'm reassigning the job to someone else, it means I don't trust you anymore. Now, remember that Zubin respects Aditya Swarup, so he doesn't want to do that. Also, Aditya Swarup may not be able to restore his reputation because the article has now been assigned to someone else entirely. So, option 2 is gone. Option 3 says, assign a new investigative project to Aditya Swarup, advising him to focus on the new project without worrying about the past one. Now, as Zubin, I don't want him to work on the mining project. I don't want anyone to work on the mining project. So, I start off on a clean slate. Option 3 kind of makes sense because if Aditya Swarup is able to do a good job on the new project, then he might be able to restore his reputation. So, we're just moving forward. Option 3 is good. The fourth one says, ask Aditya Swarup to start his own YouTube channel since more people are aware of him now than ever before. So, what does Aditya Swarup want to do? He wants to restore his reputation as an investigative journalist. Starting a YouTube channel may not necessarily do that for him. Plus, it's trying out a whole new activity and he may or may not be very good at it. So, Option 4 is not going to work. Also, please remember that if you're asking Aditya Swaroop to start his own YouTube channel, you are not necessarily saying that I still have faith in you. So option 4 therefore is out. Option 5 says, ask Aditya Swaroop to focus on mentoring new and young journalists instead of working on any investigative report for some time. This definitely indicates lack of faith on Zubin's part. And this will also not help to restore Aditya Swaroop's reputation because he is known as an investigative journalist. So yes, he might be doing good work, but ultimately his name will still be tarnished because people will remember him for the last report that he published. So option 5 is not your answer. The answer is option 3. This works because Aditya Swaroop will now get a clean slate and he might be able to recover his reputation because he will do a good job on the new project. This is Arya's story, but I'm sure that it will resonate with some of you as well. So Arya has completed her engineering and she has secured a decent but modestly paying job at an IT company. I'm sure this sounds familiar. But after a year on the job, Arya found her role mundane. She got bored. Then her best friend Shruti left the company to pursue an MBA. And then Shruti encouraged her that maybe Arya, you should also do an MBA. Doing an MBA from a top-tier business school could not only land Arya a lucrative job, but also would fast-track her career progression. Arya, however, was concerned whether she would be able to balance between her MBA entrance exam preparation and her current job. Again, as you can see, this is not a new situation. This is something you're familiar with. So, you should be able to do this set quite easily. Now, look at the last bit. Arya has considered resigning to focus on MBA entrance exam preparation, but Shruti told her that, that's not a good idea because B schools may not look upon a career break very favorably. Again, that is Shruti's view. We're not going to say whether that is true or not. So, the story is very, very clear. Arya is bored with her job. She's considering doing an MBA, but she's also a little bit concerned about how she will prepare for the MBA entrance exams along with her job. So she's thinking maybe I should resign. Let's now take a look at our question. The CEO of Arya's IT firm tied up with a premier B school to reserve 30 seats in an online management certificate program. Now please note, this is not an MBA, it is an online certificate program. The CEO, however, declared that the employees participating in this program will have to sign a 3-year bond with the firm. Further, good performance was a criterion for selection, but he would hold the authority to take a final call. So all of this is background information. What is really important for us is that Arya is contemplating going for the management certificate program instead of preparing for the MBA entrance exams. You see, she was a mediocre student, so she doesn't have too much confidence in her academic abilities. So she's thinking, okay, maybe MBA is too tough for me, maybe this is a slightly better option. Now, obviously, she needs to make a choice. The question is, which of the following considerations will best help Arya decide whether to apply for the online management certificate program? Whenever you have to decide whether you should pursue a program or a course of action, you have to think about your goals. So why is Arya trying to do an MBA in the first place? Arya is trying to do an MBA because she's bored with her current job and she's seeking a better career. So the online program should further her career. If it does not, then there is no point doing it. So let's keep that original goal in mind. Now, some students might feel that the reason that Arya wants to pursue an MBA is because of her best friend Shruti. While Shruti may have inspired Arya to take the plunge, Shruti is not the actual reason. The actual reason is that Arya is bored with her job and she wants to do better in her career. So that is why the criteria here would be that the online program should further her career. This is how we are going to evaluate our options. The first option says Arya wants to be part of a very good alumni network. Now the thing is that this is a certificate program, plus it is online. So it may not really give her a very good alumni network. So the program will not help with this. But does that mean that Arya should not pursue the program? Not really, because she wants to pursue whatever program she is going to pursue to further her career. While being a part of an alumni network might contribute to that. That is not really how she can get a better job. I mean, that's not the primary consideration. So this is not going to be the reason why Arya chooses the online program or does not choose the online program. The second one says those who complete this online management program do well in their career. So since Arya's point is to do better in her career, this would encourage her to join the online program. So option 2 looks good. Now option 3 says Arya keeps getting appreciated for her performance by the HR department. This means she is a good worker probably. But how does that impact her decision to pursue the online program? It doesn't tell us how the program will benefit her. All that it tells us is that she is doing well in her job right now. So option 3 is not going to help her decide. Let's eliminate option 3. The fourth one says Shruti attempted the MBA entrance exams twice before she could get selected. This seems to suggest that maybe it is difficult to get into a top B school and therefore maybe Arya should not try, she should just join the certificate program. But this does not meet our criteria. The whole reason for doing an MBA or to join the certificate program is to do better in her career. Whether it is difficult or whether it is easy is going to be a secondary consideration. So here, look at what the question is asking you. Arya has to decide whether to apply for the online management certificate program. Just because it seems to be difficult to get into an MBA, this is not a good enough reason to opt for the online program. That is why option 4 is not going to help her decide. Plus, what is true of Shruti may or may not be true of Arya anyway. So let's eliminate 4. The fifth one says Arya feels that the online program is light enough to manage while working full-time. Now, if you read the original case, you would realize that managing her time is in fact a concern. So this online program is going to be convenient for her. But are we supposed to pursue a program because it is convenient? No, we are supposed to pursue a program because it aligns with our goals. Option 5 does not tell us that the program will help her in her career. So no matter how convenient it is, she is not supposed to join it just because she can. That means option 5 is also not the best consideration for whether she should join or not. Let's eliminate it. Which means that it is going to be option 2. Now here we have a lot more data being supplied to us, but the crux of the matter is that she worked hard on an MBA entrance exam preparations. She received an admission offer from the 2-year agri-business program of a premier B school, which is definitely not bad. Okay, and this is also my advice to some of you. While she aspired to be part of the premier B school, she had no interest in agri-business. So this becomes a second major point of consideration. It does not align with her interests. Then she received an offer from a brand new but buzzworthy global 1-year executive MBA program in general management. This allows her to explore different functions and specializations. So now you have the 2-year MBA but in agribusiness, and you have the 1-year executive MBA in general management. Now this is in a mid-tier business school, but at the same time, the program has excellent placement for its first batch of students. So placements are not a problem. Now, what is Arya's concern? Arya was worried whether being a candidate with minimal experience, she would be a good fit. Which of the following considerations would best help Arya in taking admission? So this is what we need to do. We need to help Arya or convince her to take admission in the 1-year executive MBA program. Again, remember, why has Arya started thinking about doing an MBA? Because she wants to make progress in her career. So the best reason for her to join any program is that it should contribute to that goal. So the online program should help Arya's career. If it will help Arya's career, she should join it. So very simple criteria. Now let's take a look at the options. The first option says the agribusiness program is not the flagship program of the premier business school. The flagship program is the first or the most well-known program. But even if it is not the flagship program, it could still be good. So this does not tell us that she should not join the agribusiness, she should join the 1-year MBA. So this is not very helpful. even if it is not the flagship program, it could still be good. And remember, it's in a premier B school. So yes, it is likely to be good. So option 1 does not really help us decide or help Arya decide whether she should join the 1-year MBA or she should not join. So let's eliminate. The second one, Arya does not have the confidence to spend another year in MBA entrance exam preparation. Remember, just because something feels difficult to do is not a good reason to not do it. So just because Arya says, I don't want to prepare for MBA for another year, does not mean that she has to take the program that is on offer. So option 2 is not a good reason. Now option 3 says, Arya has a better chance of furthering her career in a field of her interest through the executive MBA program. What does this tell us? That the executive MBA program is more likely to help her career because it is better aligned with her interests. So option 3 is pretty good. This is as good as saying that the online program will help her. The fourth option says the unique structure of the executive MBA program has gained a lot of attention from the new startups. Now, unless we know that Arya wants to work with a new startup, we don't know whether this is actually going to further her career or not. Remember, she already has a job. She is working in a company where she is not particularly unhappy. So after this program, is she necessarily going to want to join a new startup which is slightly more risky? Maybe not. All I'm saying is that just because the program has generated attention from new startups is not a good reason to join it, at least for someone in Arya's position. So let's eliminate option 4. The fifth one says the executive MBA program offers generous scholarships to women with IT experience. This again points to convenience, that it will be easy for her to join the program and be able to pay for it. But just because something is easy is not a reason to do it. So option 5 is not going to be a good reason to join. So please remember, we do not make decisions on the basis of something being difficult or something being easy to do. We make decisions on the basis of whether that action is going to help us accomplish our goals. And that is why option 5 is not the right choice. Neither is option 2. Option 2 says MBA is too difficult. Option 5 says the program is easy. Ultimately, there's only one option that tells us that the program might help her career, which is option 3. And that is why option 3 is the correct choice. Now here Arya's story continues. We all know that Arya has received 2 admission offers. One from the agribusiness program and another from a brand new B school for a global 1-year executive MBA program. Now, she decides to enroll in the 1-year executive MBA program and submitted her first installment of fees. Now, there is a twist in the tale. To her shock, a few days later, she received a call from the authorities of the mid-tier business school. They said that we made a mistake. There was a technical glitch. More admission offers were made than the available seats. So, candidates lower on the merit list, including Arya, were being offered a choice. She has the option to defer her admission to the next year in the same program or get a full refund of the fee. We made a mistake. We don't have any space for you this year. You can defer your admission to next year or you can take a refund. Now, Arya considered the whole thing a breach of trust. She feels that the institute has violated her trust and she's now wondering, should I join the B school at all? Either now or in the future. So you see, Arya's problem is violation of trust. The question is asking us which of the following considerations will best restore her faith in this business school. We have to restore Arya's faith in the B school. So, whatever action we point to has to inspire trust. Whatever we point to has to inspire trust. The B school has to claim trust again. Our first option says the business school owned the mistake and tried their best to help the affected candidates. So, the B school is being transparent. If someone is being transparent and is trying to help you out, managing the consequences of their mistake, then it does kind of inspire trust. So again, in DM, remember that a lot of times admitting to your mistake is actually a good choice. That is what the B school is doing. So option 1 could inspire trust. The second option says that the business school runs many management training programs on ethical leadership. Just because it runs programs on ethical leadership does not mean that the B school is ethical. So this is not really going to inspire too much trust. I mean, it may, but this is really not a good reason to trust the B school. So let's eliminate 2. The third one says many mid-tier B schools give offers to more candidates than available seats to tackle rejections. This is saying, oh, but this happens all the time. So this is not a big deal. But just because it happens all the time does not make it right. So knowing that other B schools also make similar mistakes is not going to help restore Arya's trust in this B school. Just because a lot of people are doing something wrong does not mean it is okay to do it. So option 3 is not helpful. The fourth option says a similar incident happened 3 years back in another business school. All deferred candidates eventually got good placements. This is telling us that if Arya defers her placement or defers her admission to that B school, she will still be able to get a good job. So jobs are not going to be a problem. But Arya's problem is not whether she will get a job or not get a job. Arya's issue is that her trust has been broken. So option 4 does not inspire trust. It just tells us that it would be a good idea to take admission because she will get placed. But the trust issue is not addressed. That is why option 4 is not our answer. Option 5 says a deferment by a year will give her a chance to build on her work experience. Now this is good for Arya. And yes, maybe this tells us that she should defer her admission. It will work in her favor. But Arya's problem is breach of trust. Option 5 does not tell us how the institute will inspire trust. So that is also not our answer. So remember, here our criteria are very, very important. We need to point to a reason that we should trust the B school. And that is only the first option, because the B school has admitted to its mistakes and is trying to help the candidates. Option 1 is the correct choice. This caselet involves managerial decision making. So there is a company called TrueColor. They are in the business of inviting singers to a city called Tivana, and they make money out of selling tickets for their concerts. Very simple business model. For selling the tickets, they rely on an external media agency called ZDS. Now with ZDS, they have a long-standing relationship, and ZDS has been able to achieve a target of 50,000 tickets for each of the events. Now something new has happened. Mr. Sukanta Rao has joined as an in-house sales and marketing manager, and his job is to increase the sales of tickets from 50,000 to 100,000. So now we know the background. So far ZDS was doing the ticket selling. It was able to sell 50,000 tickets. Now Mr. Sukanta Rao has joined and he is supposed to increase ticket sales to 100,000, which is nearly doubling it. Does he think it's possible? Apparently yes, he does. Now let's take a look at our question. Sukanta felt that the aspirational target is the 100,000 tickets, can be achieved only if ZDS is replaced. However, he is not sure if he should make any major changes in his first year. Now the question is a little weird. Which of the following reasons will best help Sukanta not to make major changes? So we have to discourage Sukanta from making changes, or we have to find a reason for Sukanta to not make changes. Now the criteria obviously will then be that we need to pick an option that provides a reason to Sukanta to avoid making changes. Our first option says, TrueColor recruited Sukanta to increase ticket sales by whatever means necessary. Now, if his mandate is to increase ticket sales by whatever means, that tells us that he should do whatever is required to increase ticket sales, which includes replacing ZDS. So option 1 will require him to make major changes, because that is what he is supposed to do. Without removing ZDS, he will not be able to accomplish the target. So option 1 therefore is not the best choice. For around a decade, ticket sales have consistently hovered at 50,000. This tells us that there is a trend to the sales. Now if I want to change that trend, then I will have to change something. So option 2 also points towards change rather than away from change. So let's eliminate 2. ZDS has managed TrueColor's marketing for the last 5 years. This doesn't tell us whether we should change or not change. Just because it has been managing the marketing for the last 5 years does not give me a reason to not change things. So option 3 is out. The fourth option, the owners of ZDS are respected citizens of Tivana. See, by removing ZDS from my business or by maybe breaking that business relationship, I'm not being disrespectful. So even if they are respected citizens of Tivana, it's okay if I don't want to do business with them anymore. It's not that I have a personal relationship. So whether they are respected citizens or whether they are not respected citizens, this should not make any difference to Sukanta. Option 4 therefore is out. Sukanta needs more time to learn about the dynamics of the Eastern market. Now, if you look at the original case, it tells us that Sukanta believes that in a city of this size, selling more than 75,000 tickets is feasible. But this is his initial assessment. Before making any major changes, he should definitely get to know the market better because his assessment is based on what happens in other cities. So option 5 tells us that it is possible that Sukanta's initial assessment might not be accurate. Therefore, option 5 is a good reason for Sukanta to not make any major changes. Option 5 is the correct choice. Now here we are adding some more data to the original case. There is an event that's taking place 2 weeks before that event. The CEO, Adil, received a few emails from competing media agencies. So please make a note of this. That accused ZDS of selling phony tickets in the black market. Phony means fake tickets. When Adil inquired with the security agency in charge of gatekeeping the events, they said, we don't know how to check. So, we need to help Adil ignore the accusations from the competing media agencies. So, we have to give him a reason to disbelieve or ignore whatever the competing media agencies are saying. That therefore becomes our criteria. Our first option says, ZDS is the largest media agency in Tivana. But this does not tell me that it can do no wrong. It also does not tell me that it is doing right now. So whether it is the largest media agency or not makes no difference to that allegation of selling fake tickets. So option 1 is not a good enough reason to ignore the allegation of black marketing. The second one says that Tivana is a small city, so a few prominent personalities have to be allowed in without tickets. Now, this is not equal to selling fake tickets. While I might allow certain guests to attend the function or the event out of respect for them or because of the power that they have in the community, that still does not mean that I'm going to give fake tickets to these people. So option 2 does not tell me that they're not actually selling fake tickets. They could still be selling fake tickets. The third option says some attendees admitted to paying cash to gatekeepers to get in. Now here they're bribing the gatekeepers. We do not know whether ZDS has sold them fake tickets or whether it has not. So this is a completely different type of wrongdoing. It doesn't tell us anything about ZDS. So we don't know whether we should believe the competing media agencies or not. Let's eliminate 3. In Tivana, the competing media agencies keep defaming each other out of fierce competition. This is as good as saying that they keep gossiping and lying. If I know that they have a tendency to lie about each other, then I am less likely to believe these emails. If you know that something happens very frequently and that it is not the truth, then I am more likely to discredit it. That is why option 4 gives me a good reason to disbelieve the accusations. The fifth option says, ZDS promises a particular threshold of ticket sales as decided by TrueColor. So, they have promised that we are definitely going to sell this many tickets. Now, option 5 might mean that in order to meet that target, maybe they're selling fake tickets. So, if anything, option 5 might encourage me to believe the accusations rather than discourage me. So, option 5 is out. Our answer is option 4. Now, this is a lot of reading, but there is really not much here that is difficult to understand. So, whenever you're doing the decision-making sets, don't get scared of how much text is there. The text is usually easy to read. Now, Sukanta has convinced Adil that they should get into the ticket selling business. But it means moving away from ZDS. The transition could cause short-term pains. Also, Sukanta said that TrueColor would achieve self-sufficiency over a couple of years. Now, Adil, who is the CEO, was concerned about taking this kind of risk. But he decided to go along with it in the interest of building long-term competencies. So, ultimately what has happened is that they have decided not to renew ZDS's contract, and Sukanta has recruited his own team as support staff to sell tickets. So, ZDS is no longer selling tickets. Sukanta has hired their own staff to sell tickets. Now, there is a problem. They managed to sell only 40,000 tickets. Due to this, a lot of people in the company are grumbling. It provoked considerable dissent, challenging Sukanta's decision. So obviously people are saying that, whatever he's done is not right. We used to sell 50,000 tickets and now we're down to 40,000. So firing ZDS was not a good idea. As the CEO, Adil, what are you supposed to do? What is the best course of action? Now you have to remember why Adil has agreed to take the risk. Adil has agreed to take the risk because of the competencies it will create in the long term. So Adil's focus has to be on the long term, and it is keeping that in view that he is going to decide whatever he is going to decide. Our first option says he should threaten Sukanta that if sales do not improve by next year, he and his team will be fired. But you have to understand that Sukanta has already anticipated this. Look at this part. The transition could cause short-term pains. So he's already informed Adil that in the short term it is going to be painful. And Adil has agreed to take the risk. Sukanta has also said that they will achieve sufficiency over a couple of years. So now you can't tell him that you need to get everything fixed by next year. You have to give him some time because he asked for that time and you have agreed to it. So option 1 is not the right course of action. The second one says he should engage a different media agency which is working for TrueColor's main competitor. Now, if we wanted to keep a media agency, then we might as well have kept ZDS. There is no reason for us to engage a different media agency. The whole point was that we wanted to build in-house competencies. We wanted to be able to sell tickets on our own. Option 2 is not going to help that in the long term. So option 2 is out. The third one says he should wait and watch as the investment in Sukanta may need more time to bear result. And that's exactly what Adil should probably do because Sukanta has told him that in the short term things will be bad but they will improve. So he needs to give Sukanta the time to work things out. The fourth option says he should dismiss Sukanta's team and let the earlier media agency to take over. Now, we know already that we don't want to stick to ZDS because we want to increase ticket sales. If we want to increase ticket sales, then we should not keep ZDS in the pipeline. So option 4 definitely is not the right choice. Plus, he should dismiss Sukanta's team would not be fair because Sukanta has already anticipated that all of this would happen, informed the CEO, and the CEO has been willing to take the risk. So option 4 is out. Same with option 5. He should make Sukanta and his team go back to ZDS immediately. This will not help build long-term competencies. This will not help to increase ticket sales. So option 5 is out. So the answer is the third one, maintain status quo, wait and watch. This caselet is about Kind Care Hospital, which is located in a small town. The second paragraph tells us all the facilities that the hospital has. It was established 50 years ago. At that time, the town was still developing. As a result, the hospital needed a 24-hour cafeteria because at that time, there weren't too many places where people could go and eat. It also has a state-of-the-art testing lab and it is still very sought after. Then it says that now many other facilities have come up in the surrounding area, pharmacies, food joints, hotels and so on. And of course, there is a standalone pharmacy chain which is doing quite well. So now the town has developed somewhat. Next paragraph tells us that Kind Care plays a crucial role in medical services and it receives generous funding. So money is not so much of a problem. But yes, the hospital is pretty important to the people. Now, the next paragraph tells us during the COVID-19 pandemic, the hospital was able to enhance internet connectivity. As a result, many doctors and the administrative staff were able to work remotely. And then it talks about what the problem is. The problem is that the hospital needs to make renovations. If it does not make these renovations on an urgent basis, then the operations at the hospital will get impacted. But the renovations are also very difficult because there are so many patients that the hospital has to handle, and the hospital is pretty important to these patients. So now we have to figure out how the renovations can happen and still the patients should be managed. Of course, let's take a look at the questions so that the problem definition is more specific. Now, in this question, we are saying that Kind Care feels that they need to improve their infrastructure. But that would mean that temporarily it will need to either reduce or shut down the operations of a few departments. These are the things that the hospital can do. We have to figure out which of the following combinations will least affect the functioning of the hospital. So on what basis do we evaluate all of these? The criteria is that the patients should have alternatives to the services that are being reduced and shut down. So even though the hospital shuts down certain functions, the patient should not be affected by it or should not be very affected by it. So that is how I understood this question. Now let me show you the combinations that we can adopt. But of course, we'll have to go through A, B, C, D, E on their own. The first option or the first statement says reduce their outpatient staff capacity to half. Now this is going to be a problem because patients in that area and even some surrounding areas depend on the hospital. So this one is going to impact the hospital's functioning significantly and also will impact the patients. So A is not a very good idea. I don't want this to be amongst one of the things the hospital does. Now, of course, then we can eliminate a few options here. For example, then 2, 4 and 5 can be eliminated. But let's worry about that later. The second one says, shut down the cafeteria for the period of renovation. Now, if you remember, the cafeteria was installed or it was put in place because the town was still developing. Now, there are food joints. So the patients have other places where they can eat, which means that if I choose this course of action, it is not going to affect patients so much. They will still be able to access the critical services that they really need. So we keep B as a part of our answer. C says ask their administrative staff to work remotely. Now, if you remember, the case said that during the pandemic, the hospital had already made this possible. So this was seamlessly done in the past. Which means that if we do this now, there shouldn't be a major problem. So this is also not going to affect the functioning of the hospital all that much. Let's look at D. Strip the pharmacy operations down to emergency and critical medications. Now, if you remember, there is a very strong pharmacy chain that has come up in that area. So, the hospital on which patients rely for critical and emergency services, that needs to function in that capacity. So, if the operations are stripped down to emergency and critical medications, then these services are not going to be affected. For the other medications, the patients can always go to other pharmacies. So, here also the patients have alternatives. Now, D therefore is kind of going to work. Let's look at E. Shut down the medical lab and arrange medical tests from a local lab. Now, this hospital has a state-of-the-art lab and it says that people still want to get the test done in the hospital because the lab is very good. So if I shut down the medical lab, it is definitely going to impact patients, and this is a pretty big part of the functioning of the hospital. So we definitely don't want E as a part of our answer. So if you're doing it this systematically, then you can clearly see that the answer should contain B, C and D, which in this case is option 3. So we remove 1 and 2, 4 and 5 are not our answer. Option 3 is the correct choice. Now here we're adding some more data to the case. We're trying to say that there are a lot of medicines and auxiliary supplies in the storage unit. The storage unit ensures timely supply to the ICU and emergency services. It always runs to capacity, it's always full. The renovation team suggests that the storage unit be shut down for 7 days for urgent renovation. But the hospital building being old, renovation work had stretched beyond estimated time. So it may take more than 7 days also. The question is, which of the following actions best ensures kind care operates efficiently during the renovation of the storage unit? So again, what is it that we're trying to ensure? We're trying to ensure that the supply of medicines to the ICU and emergency services should not be significantly affected. So yes, we do have to carry on the renovation because it is essential, but it should not impact the functioning of the hospital too much. Let's evaluate our options. The first option says, shut down the hospital until further notice. Now, the moment I read that, I should say, okay, this is too extreme because the hospital just needs to renovate the storage unit. Why shut down the hospital completely? So, this is doing a little bit too much, more than what is required. Let's eliminate the first one. The second says, shut down the cafeteria until further notice and relocate the storage unit. Again, remember that the cafeteria was built because the town was still developing and people did not have too many other places to eat. But now there are other food joints. So even if the cafeteria is shut down, it is not going to impact patients as much. And the storage unit will still keep functioning. So option 2 seems like a very practical solution. The third one says, renovate the storage unit part by part while having the capacity of the emergency services. Now this is going to impact the patient. And if I renovate the storage unit part by part, it might actually take more time to renovate the whole thing, which will only extend the problem. It is not going to fix it. Now, option 3 therefore is a bad idea. The fourth one says, rent a large space about 1 hour away from the hospital for 7 days. Now, keep in mind that the storage unit provides supplies to the ICU and emergency services. When it is an emergency, then you need the supplies to be available quickly. You cannot have your storage unit an hour away from the hospital. So that will not really serve any function, which means that option 4 will not help. The fifth option says, start building a new storage facility as their capacity is already stretched. Now this will take more time. Plus, if it is possible to renovate the existing storage unit, why build a new one? So option 5 again is a case of doing too much. It will take more time, more resources and is not required. Because the problem is not that the storage unit is full. The problem is that it has to be renovated. So let's eliminate 5. So the answer is option 2. This is the only one that will ensure that the renovation takes place and the patients and the functioning of the hospital are not significantly affected. Now here we are still talking about the storage unit. The renovation of the storage unit will take 7 days or was supposed to take 7 days, but they realized that the work will take more than 15 days. Kind Care feels that even this revised estimate is modest, so it might be 20 or 30. It could extend. Already the outpatient services are affected and people visiting the hospital are being turned away. Stretching it further will attract strong public resentment. You have to understand that people rely on the hospital. This is the only hospital in that area and for the people of the surrounding areas. So, if they turn away patients or are not able to provide essential services to the patients, they will be very unhappy. Which of the following actions offers the most sustainable solution for Kind Care to reduce the number of patients being turned away? So, our goal here is this. We need to reduce the number of patients being turned away. Look at option 1. Bring in a reputed renovation team at triple the cost, which guarantees to finish this work in 3 days. Now, I know it seems like this is too much, but does it get the job done? It does cut down on the number of patients being turned away because the work will be finished in 3 days instead of say 15. Now, can they bring in a renovation team at triple the cost? If you remember the original case, this hospital is generously funded. So yes, it might have the money. In fact, nowhere does the case tell us that there are financial constraints. So option 1 is not too bad. We should keep it. The second one says resume some operations from rented spaces scattered around the region. But this will only be some operations. Patients might still have to be turned away. So option 2 is not really going to take care of public resentment. Option 3 says arrange with a larger hospital in Shamili to take over their critical patients. Now, while some patients will go to Shamili, you have to remember that it is 100 kilometers away. So, it is still going to greatly inconvenience the public and they will not be happy about the situation. So, option 3 is not really the best option. The fourth one, start reduced operations gradually and hire a team of experts to find ways to expedite the renovation. This is just saying let's look into how we can get the work done faster, but it's not actually telling us how the work will be done faster. Plus, if we start reduced operations gradually, even then ultimately patients are going to be affected and they will resent the fact that the hospital is not able to cater to their needs. So option 4 does not cut down on the number of patients. It just kind of staggers them. That's it. So option 4 is out. The fifth one says stop the renovation work immediately. But then you have to understand that the renovation is absolutely essential. Otherwise, the hospital will not be able to function properly. So this is not a choice. That means option 1, regardless of the high cost, is still the best choice, keeping in view our goal. Our goal is to not inconvenience patients. So if I can bring in a team that finishes the work in 3 days, that is the least inconvenience to patients, and that is why option 1 is the right choice. Now this caselet is about Ned Flanders and Homer Simpson Partners Limited, which is a law firm. The first paragraph gives us some background information on the firm and says that the founders are Homer Simpson and Ned Flanders. They have slightly different personalities. But I thought that the first para is not very, very important. It is the second para which has most of the important info. The organization believes in a strong socialization ritual. So when you read this, you start feeling that the organization is more of a cult rather than a law firm, because this socialization ritual involves making life very difficult for the newcomers. There are artificial tasks, unexpected client calls, challenging meeting with the founders, so they make life genuinely painful. After that, the newcomers are overwhelmed. They start questioning their life decisions. They wonder if it was the right idea to join the law firm. And then the founders meet them and say, hey, surprise, it was all a big prank. Ultimately, the socialization ritual has served the organization well for the past 2 decades, but not too much of a surprise, not all the newcomers appreciate the utility of this ritual. So this socialization ritual has worked for the firm, but not everyone is happy with it. The last paragraph tells us Ms. Lisa Simpleton joined in 2023, underwent the same socialization ritual, found it unwelcoming. So she is not happy with it. She feels that the current generation, especially post-COVID, needs a more friendly welcome and the firm must put an end to this ritual. So Lisa Simpleton is against this socialization ritual. So far, there is no problem that has been introduced. We just have the story. Let's take a look at our question. Now here we are saying that there's a new batch of lawyers that joins the organization, and Lisa feels that she needs to save them from the painful experience that she had to undergo. But Lisa is on probation, and so she doesn't really want to stick her neck out. Since she is yet to be confirmed, she wants to be seen as fitting within the organization's culture. So, Lisa has 2 goals here to accomplish. First, she wants to save the newcomers, but she also does not want to be singled out for questioning the organization's culture. So our criteria are going to be exactly these 2 things. We have to save the newcomers from the socialization ritual, and we have to prevent Lisa from being singled out for questioning the organization's culture. That's it. Our options read as follows. Be silent this year until her performance review is over and she is confirmed. This will definitely help Lisa, but this will not help the newcomers. So one of our goals, saving the newcomers, is not going to be met. Option 1 therefore is not our answer. The second one says, join a team of lawyers petitioning to the founders to end this practice. So Lisa is now able to put some effort into trying to save the newcomers, because if she forms a team with other lawyers, together they can probably ask the founders to end the practice. This also accomplishes the second purpose of Lisa not being singled out, because now she's a part of a team. So here, Lisa is able to assuage her conscience a little bit by doing something, and she is also not risking her career. Option 2 looks good. The third one says, seek a meeting with Ned Flanders, suggesting him to put an end to this practice. Now, she's on probation. This is a perfect example of sticking your neck out. Here, she is directly questioning the organization's culture. So that's not going to be very good for her career. That means option 3 is not her answer. The fourth option says, meet one of the newcomers in secret and tell her about this practice. Let's say Lisa does this. First of all, this might damage her reputation if it comes out that she has forewarned the newcomers, because this is definitely going against the practices of the company. So that is one problem. Secondly, even if she does tell the newcomers, how will that necessarily save them from this evil practice? Maybe they will be forewarned and they will realize that it's all a prank, and therefore they don't really need to be so stressed out. So in this case, what is happening is that she might be helping the newcomers, but she is also going behind her organizations and she's risking her career, because she's not supposed to be doing this. So option 4 is not our answer. The fifth one, organize a generic workshop for newcomers regarding workplace politics. First of all, this is just a socialization ritual. It is not workplace politics. Now, in this case, Lisa again is going to make herself very prominent by organizing such a workshop. The whole idea is to keep herself hidden while also saving the newcomers. Option 5 is neither saving the newcomers nor is it saving Lisa. So option 5 is out. The answer is going to be the second one. Here, they are able to do something to save the newcomers, and Lisa is also not being singled out because she is part of a team. Now here, a new event has occurred. When a new batch of lawyers joins the organization, they receive an anonymous email warning them about the socialization ritual. Though no newcomer paid heed to the mail, the founders are furious. They said that the employees are welcome to express their opinions, but this is a cowardly act. So obviously they are very unhappy with whoever has done this. The water cooler discussions, the rumor mills, murmur Lisa's name. Lisa is pleased that someone shares her perspective on the socialization ritual and has acted. However, she did not write the aforementioned email. As her name continues to be mentioned, she feels overwhelmed and wonders if she needs to do something about it. So, an anonymous email has been sent. It has not been sent by Lisa. However, Lisa's name has come to the forefront and she's concerned that it might affect her career. Now, the question is, which of the following actions by Lisa can best enable her to diffuse the situation? She wants to take the pressure off herself. So, the criteria by which we need to assess is that Lisa needs to disassociate herself from the anonymous email. That email is going to land whoever sent it in trouble, and Lisa doesn't really want to go through that trouble. So she has to make it very clear that she didn't send the email. Our first option says she should simply focus on her work and hope that the founders would ignore the rumors. First of all, the founders are furious. They are quite upset about it, so they would want to know who has sent it. Secondly, silent may sometimes be construed as guilt. So if Lisa does not speak up, people might start believing that she has actually sent that email. So option 1 is not going to help Lisa. The second one says she should publicly apologize for having questioned the tradition of the organization to put all doubts to rest. Now, this is an acknowledgement of guilt, but she's not actually sent that email. When you say, I am sorry for questioning this tradition, you could also be suggesting that, yes, I have sent that email, which she has not. So option 2 is taking responsibility for something that she has not done. Let's eliminate this. The third one says she should send a public email clarifying that while she has reservations about the practice, she is not the author of the anonymous email. So first of all, letting the whole organization know of this is not really warranted. She needs to probably get this clarified with the founders by having a direct conversation with them. Option 3 is going to create even more rumors. So option 3 is not really going to work. Plus, just because she says I have not sent that email may not really lead to people believing her. So option 3 should be eliminated. The fourth one says she should meet the founders and share that while she has reservations about the practice, she did not send the anonymous email. Now here, the conversation is going to be limited to Lisa and the founders. It is not going to spread through the entire organization. Now the founders may choose to believe her or may not choose to believe her, but this is still the best course of action that Lisa can take because she is not making the situation worse and she is also definitely admitting to the fact that she has not sent the email. The rest of it is obviously the founder's prerogative as to whether they want to believe her or not. So let's keep 4. The fifth one says she should apologize to the founders, taking accountability for creating a climate that resulted in someone sending the anonymous email. This again is taking responsibility for something that you may not have been entirely at fault for. She has not sent the email, so she should not take accountability for it in any way. That is why option 5 is not going to work. So the answer is option 4. As a general rule, if you are in trouble, you should have a direct conversation with the supervisor or the person with whom you have gotten into trouble, instead of spreading that story throughout the entire organization. Now, it is with this thought that we decide option 4 is the right choice. Now let's look at what is the additional info here. It's 2025, a new batch of lawyers has joined the firm. Now look at the first paragraph. Some lawyers from the previous batch have approached the founders to express their appreciation for the intent behind the socialization ritual. But then it says they feel that the ritual has become archaic in its execution and that it requires some fresh thinking. So people are saying that, you know what, the idea is great, but the way that this idea is being implemented is not so great. So we need to change a few things. As they leave, Ned feels that they should abandon the ritual. Homer disagrees. He thinks that exposing the employees to the profession is very, very important. Moreover, it helps the organization know whether the newcomer is ready for such a profession. So if you remember, what does the ritual involve? The ritual involves overwhelming the employees with work and challenging assignments so that they start questioning their decision of joining the organization. After that, the founders meet the newcomers and tell them it was all a big prank and that they should not be worried. That was what the ritual was. So that ritual has served a purpose over the years, which means that there must be something good about it. Now the question is, which of the following actions should the founders best take if they still want to welcome their newcomers by exposing them to the harsh reality of the profession while being empathetic to the demands of the times? So they want to retain some aspects from that socialization ritual, but they also want to bring about some changes. So this becomes our criteria. Whatever changes they bring about, the newcomers should be familiarized with the organization and with the nature of their work, but the outdated features of the socialization ritual should be replaced or reformed. Our options are as such. They should, in their website, share details about how tough the workload is going to be. Now, we cannot replace the socialization ritual with website information because the socialization ritual is experiential. No amount of reading is going to substitute that experience for the employees. So option 1 is not going to work because it does not have the benefits that the socialization ritual will bring. Let's eliminate it. The second one says they should talk to their competitors in the same industry and check what kind of practices they follow. Again, let's understand that the socialization ritual is supposed to integrate new employees into this organization's culture. Talking to other organizations may not necessarily help because different organizations have different cultures. So what works for another company may not work for my company. That is why option 2 is not a good choice. The third one says they should get a mental health professional to design their socialization ritual. Now, this would make it rather impersonal. Yes, it might be very objective. It might also be good in certain ways, but it will not expose employees to the organization's culture. This will require input from the employees and the founders of the organization. An outsider cannot do it. That is why it is not the third option. The fourth one says they should stick to what they're doing, but hire a mental health professional who the newcomers can refer to if they feel the need. This is saying, basically, we're not going to change the ritual. If you cannot handle it, talk to a mental health professional. So this allows for absolutely no change. It is just giving you an additional facility of talking to a counselor. That's it. So option 4 does not really meet the task of reforming the ritual. That's why it's not our answer. The fifth one says they should invite suggestions from their young lawyers regarding formulating a new socialization ritual. Now remember that these lawyers do appreciate the intent behind the ritual. So they're not going to say let's scrap it completely. But they might also be able to suggest how to make it better because they have already undergone that experience. So option 5 is the best choice. Now this caselet is about the troubles of a retailer. The retailer is Sundaram Stores. Sundaram Stores operates in a gated community which is about 30 kilometers away from the main town. Now Sundaram has had to pay a very high rent in order to secure that space. So look at the last line of the first paragraph. Sundaram agreed to pay a very high rent, banking on the prospect of generating exceptional revenue from the gated community. So he thought he's going to make a lot of money, therefore he agreed to pay the rent. Now paragraph 2 says that Sundaram got the contract to establish the store. There were other bidders as well, but since he offered the highest rent, he won the contract. Now he's throwing in some goodwill there. He enthusiastically committed to offering a 15% discount on all groceries and stationery. He thought that I will make up whatever I lose in terms of margin in terms of volume. Now, in the last paragraph, we are saying that his sales were strong during the initial month, but then he realized that some residents of the gated community make their purchases at large branded retail chains in the main town. Now, why are the SUVs important? Probably because they have large vehicles, so they're able to fill up those SUVs with a lot of groceries and they carry it all back to the gated community. So maybe that is why they're mentioning the SUV owning residents. But anyway, the point is that Sundaram is losing some sales to these branded stores. These stores offer deeper discounts, which he could not afford to compete with. However, gradually Sundaram store became their go-to store for daily essentials and occasional urgent big purchases. So what we learn from this is that Sundaram stores has a role to play in the community. People go to that store for their daily purchases, but whatever groceries they want to buy, let's say once in a week or once in a month, those major purchases they do at these branded stores which are in town. Now, the question here is, while reviewing his monthly account, Sundaram realized that he was barely breaking even, primarily due to the substantial rent he was paying to the Residents Association. He realized that while his sales were stagnated, the rental costs were contractually scheduled to increase every 3 years, and he was determined to do something to increase his profits. So now, what is the role that we have to play? Which of the following will be the most sustainable way to increase Sundaram's profits? Whatever option we pick, that has to lead to a sustainable means for the long term, increase in profits. It should not be a temporary spike. Our first option says he should meet with the Residents Association to negotiate a lower rent. Now, if you read the original case, it tells you that there were other bidders, but he was awarded the contract because he was willing to pay a higher rent. This is in his contract with the Residents Association. So, he cannot breach or he cannot go against the terms of that contract. So, option 1 is not going to work out. The second one says he should offer to procure items unavailable at his shop from the town on residents' demand. Now, this might get him some additional revenue, but we're not very sure of how it will impact his profitability. if I'm trying to purchase something from another retailer and then sell it to the residents of this community, that's not really going to make me too much money because I've already paid a pretty high price on the original purchase. So ultimately, option 2 is just going to add to his work, but we don't know how it will impact his profitability. The third one says he should remove all the discounts he was offering and sell at the maximum retail price. Now remember that this discount thing he threw in out of his own good heart. That was not part of the contract. So he is allowed to remove those discounts. So option 3 is definitely a practical way to increase his profits. The fourth one says he should introduce cheap Wednesdays where he will sell groceries at 40% discount. Now, this might increase his volume, but this is not a sustainable thing because a 40% discount is further going to impact his profitability. Our goal is to increase profitability, not reduce it further. So option 4 is a very bad idea. The fifth one says he should advertise about his shop through a leaflet in the gated community. The whole reason that he wanted to open a store in the gated community is that he would have a captive market. The residents already know about his store. He does not need to advertise. So option 5 will not help him in any way. So the answer is option 3. How did we arrive at it? We realized that he is already paying a lot of money, but he's not making enough money. There is no way that he can change the rental contract, but he can change the amount of money that he is bringing in from his customers. In order to do that, he'll have to get rid of the discounts, which anyway were voluntary. That is why option 3 is the best choice. Now here we have a new development. To increase his profits, Sundaram diversified into selling vegetables. Not a bad idea. Earlier, a vegetable vendor used to visit the gated community once a week. But after Sundaram started selling vegetables, the vegetable vendor did not do so well. His sales declined. So ultimately, the vegetable vendor stopped visiting the gated community. Now we would think, okay, so that's fine. How does it affect the residents? But it does. The Residents Association did not like losing the rent that they were receiving from the vendor. So there is loss of rent. Additionally, and this is a very interesting point, the maintenance staff of the community benefited from receiving vegetables either for free or extremely low prices. So this vegetable vendor, whatever he did not sell at the end of the day, he used to give it at very low prices or for free to the maintenance staff. This is an additional benefit to the maintenance staff. How did it help? It helped to retain the maintenance staff whose attrition rate was increasing. So, the question is, which of the following options will best address the concerns of the Residents Association arising out of Sundaram getting into selling vegetables? So the problem here is twofold. Whatever course of action we pick has to solve for both. Preserve rental income or at least retain some part of it, and also preserve the benefits for the maintenance staff. What were the benefits? They were used to getting cheap or free vegetables. Our first option says that the Residents Association should request for bids from various shop owners to open another grocery store in the vacant place. But this will not bring the vegetable vendor back. So yes, it will probably get the Residents Association some more rent, but it does not get the maintenance staff the benefits that would help them stay. So while one goal will be met, the second goal will not be met. So option 1 is out. The second one says that the Residents Association should ask Sundaram to give a specific quantity of vegetables to the maintenance staff for free. Now this would not be fair to Sundaram. Plus, it is not a contractual obligation. So Sundaram doesn't have to do it. He may choose to or he may not choose to. So this also does not solve the problem. This will depend on Sundaram's goodwill. And since he is already losing money, he may not really want to do this at all. So option 2 is out. The third option says that the association should discount the rent for the vegetable vendor to increase competition. Discount the rent to increase competition. Now, what will this do? The vegetable vendor had to pay a certain amount of rent, but because he was not able to sell as many vegetables, he decided it's not worth it. But with a discounted rent, he might still be okay with lower sales and so might still decide to visit the gated community. And this will also create some competition between the two, the vegetable vendor and Sundaram stores. So this is going to help the residents. And ask him to continue. The other thing that this will do is that
the maintenance staff might still then get the reduced price or the free vegetable. This will reduce the attrition of the maintenance staff. So in this case, we have been able to preserve rental income and also the benefits for the maintenance staff. That means option 3 is pretty good. The fourth one says, the Residents Association should impose a fine on Sundaram since he was not contracted to sell vegetables. Again, the contract allowed him to sell groceries. It did not say that he cannot sell vegetables. So the fine would be unfair. That is why option 4 is not our answer. The fifth one says the Residents Association should ask Sundaram to use the erstwhile space for selling vegetables and pay rent for the same. Again, Sundaram is not obligated to do this. He does not need the extra space, and even if the association asks him, he may not really opt for that. Option 5 also doesn't get back the benefits for the maintenance staff in the form of free or cheap vegetables. So this is out. So our answer is going to be the third option. This is the only one that accomplishes both the goals. Now this situation should sound familiar to us. Sundaram is a happy man now. He has managed to get contracts with 2 more nearby gated communities. So Sundaram should be all set for retirement, but life is complicated for him. His happiness is short-lived. Rasham, a new startup, starts making waves among the gated communities. So what does Rasham do? Deliver any grocery item within 15 minutes. Rasham was earlier confined to the main town, in which case it would not be a problem for Sundaram because this gated community is outside the main town. But now, the startup has expanded its delivery services to the suburbs, including gated communities where Sundaram operates. Now, for the suburbs, the delivery time is 60 minutes. Though not an official slogan, the last paragraph is just entertaining, it doesn't really tell us much. The rumor in the market is that Rasham's founder inspired her employees by shouting, "Rasham or Crasham, but push him through that door." So Rasham is definitely out to put other grocery store owners out of business. Sundaram has started losing business. What should Sundaram best do to ensure that his revenues do not come down due to Rasham? Now you have to understand, what does Rasham offer that Sundaram currently does not? It offers home delivery. Home delivery within 60 minutes to the suburbs. So what should Sundaram do in order to compete with Rasham? He should do something similar. He should match or beat the benefits offered by them. So keeping that in mind, our first option says Sundaram should start giving discounts on every product that he sells. This is going to further cut into his profitability, and anyway he's not making a lot of money. Plus, we don't know that Rasham is offering products at lower prices. Home delivery is the main thing that they promise, not lower prices. So since we want to match or beat the benefits offered by Rasham, option 1 is not the best choice. So again, let's understand that for Sundaram, it may not be possible to do so because he wants to increase his margins overall. So let's eliminate one. The second one, Sundaram should demand that his rent be reduced to 1/3. Now, I'm going to stop reading right here. The whole reason that he was allowed into the gated community was that he agreed to pay a higher rent. Now, he cannot go back on that contractual obligation. So, option 2 definitely is not going to work. The third one says, Sundaram should explore starting his own delivery startup, Finishim, dedicated to the suburb, competing with Rasham. Now, we have to understand that a startup takes a lot of time, energy, resources. Sundaram is anyway kind of struggling with his current business. We don't know if he has the resources to work on another startup. So option 3 seems to be a pretty extreme step to take. Option 4 says Sundaram should not bother since the nearest town is 30 kilometers away. That would not be a problem, but now Rasham actually operates in the gated communities where Sundaram operates. So it is affecting his business. He cannot ignore the threat. Let's eliminate option 4. Sundaram should employ a few helpers who will do home delivery of his products within 10 minutes across the 3 gated communities. So now we are not only matching Rasham, we are beating them by 5 minutes. So he should leverage his local presence in order to offer faster delivery. Then Rasham doesn't have anything else to offer. So option 5 is probably Sundaram's best choice.